Well, I have had a very parasitic relationship with Moni ever since coming out of school, where I just any little trouble that I have, which are many, I call Moni. I'm like, Moni, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help here.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maureen Lee Linker, a digital writer here at Entertainment Weekly, and we are so excited to be gathered today for a mini Juilliard reunion in honor of a new documentary, Creating a Character, the Moni Yakim Legacy, which celebrates the life and career of Moni Yakim, a founding member of the Juilliard drama faculty and the only founding member who is still teaching there still today. We have many guests with us today to discuss the film. We have Moni Yakim himself, the subject of the documentary. We have Kaylee Wilder, the producer of the film. And then we have many of Moni's students here speaking with us today who are also featured in the film. We have Oscar Isaac, who was in group 34, Michael Urie, who was in group 32, Jessica Chastain, who was also in group 32, Anthony Mackie, who was in group 30. For those of you who are producers on the project, Kaylee, but I know Jessica and Anthony, you also were producers. What prompted you all to want to make this documentary and tell the world more about Moni and his life and his teachings?
We actually started this with kind of a promotional film about Juilliard and about Moni, kind of featuring Moni. But when we started filming his classes, it became very apparent that this was someone who needed his story needed to be told. I had never heard of Moni before, taking on this kind of gig, and after really diving in and learning and just learning from his philosophy as well as his teachings, we understood the need to document what was happening and his technique and everything. So we just started to film his classes. He was very cool about it. Like having these two, young filmmakers just coming in to film, and he really jumped on the bandwagon and was like, "Okay, I'm down for you guys to come." We talked to Juilliard, and then we launched upon this journey of filming a number of groups of students, and it was a wild ride, number of years, but really really great time.
For the rest of you, you all obviously signed up to participate in it and be here today. So why? Like, what was it about that class and that experience that made you want to be part of telling this story?
Look back at my time at Juilliard and my time taking Moni's class as some of the best years of my life. And it was a fundamental time in my life to become an actor. And I take the lessons in every project that I do. I think about the things that Moni taught me. So for me, it was an opportunity to really celebrate this person who had given me so much, and to I guess just thank him and hope to maybe allow his teachings to go to other people who are looking for something.
Well, I have had a very parasitic relationship with Moni ever since coming out of school, where I just any little trouble that I have, which are many, I call Moni. I'm like, Moni, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help here. And for years since I've graduated, I mean, that was a long time ago now. Jesus Christ, almost 20 years ago that I first stepped foot into Juilliard. And so the chance to actually give something back, or at least this, to tell more people on a bigger level that the incredible resource that this person has been, the inspiration and just the craft, the teachings that he's given so many students that have gone through those halls. I mean, instrumental, fundamental tools to be better at their craft, and that's certainly the case for me. I know for me at Juilliard, so much of it was just like a mental labyrinth, just like constantly in your head and thinking about all these things, and so much of it is about taste and about opinion and subjective thought. And when you went into Moni's room, all of that went away, and it was you either did the thing or you fell on your ass, and usually both. and and I think that's when it would all come together. Where you're like, oh, you're not in your head anymore. It's about your body. It's about your instincts. It's about putting it all together. And that's why I always go back to Monique, especially now where everything is just like you just sit at a desk or sit at a laptop and read these scripts and try to come up with all this stuff in your head. To be able to talk to Moni, to get into a room and to, you know, get up on your feet and try different that's been completely invaluable to me. And I remember Llewyn Davis in particular, when we did that movie Inside Llewyn Davis, I went to Moni and I said, I got to walk around a lot in this movie. Can you help me walk? and, uh, and then we came up with all sorts of stuff. I remember, Moni, you set up the steps in 304, and you just told me to walk up and down the steps a few different ways. And then you told this great story, which I think I remember you telling in when I was at school, about these wonderful jazz musicians that you saw come in. Do you remember the story? Can you tell the story again?
So everyone, we also now have Kevin Kline joining us, who was part of Group 1, the very first class at Juilliard Drama. And so we're so happy to have him joining us as well. But Moni, you were just about to tell us a story about jazz musicians and how that helped shape Oscar's performance in Llewyn Davis.
Correct. Before I joined Juilliard, I performed all over the country, and we went to New Orleans to perform in the college there. What's the college name?
Tulane.
Tulane, that's correct. So the person who actually booked us there said after our show, that he wanted to take us to some place to hear some music. We didn't know what it was. And he himself organized it. He was the first organizer of what's called Hall something. Hall?
Preservation Hall.
Preservation Hall. That's right.
4 questions.
So myself, Mina, with whom I performed, and another singer we were performing with, Ellie Stone, went to see the show. And like, I wanted to leave because I saw these old people who I said, my gosh, they are going to drop on their instruments. But he convinced us to stay. But the story that I'd like to say, that each one of them was an unbelievable character. I don't know if you'll be able to see me, but the woman who played the piano actually walked like this. And then when she sat, her fingers were already on And the guy that played the cello, the same. No. He was like walking like that and put his hand here and there. And he the bass.
That's brilliant.
And this was with all the instruments. And when Oscar came to work a little bit with me, I remember that. And I say, you play the guitar, and then the hands are used to that, and they take a little bit the shape of that. And that gives a little bit of some kind and into the character, you know, to try and the character a little bit more. But that was really amazing watching these people. And that was, by the way, the opening of the Preservation Hall. That's how old I am.
Well, you do kind of carry the cat like it's a guitar, Oscar, so that makes sense.
Well, there you go. Yeah, no, we came up with the whole camel, like walking like a camel against the wind. And I mean, it was invaluable things, so that when you're on set and just lost and feeling overwhelmed, it's just very clear physical things that you can remember and hold on to, and it just orients you. And I think that's why, I mean, that's one of the many reasons why I always go back to Moni.
Kevin, we were talking about why you chose to participate in the documentary, why it was important to you to help tell Moni's story.
Exposure. No, why it was important? Because I love Moni and I loved his class, and just wanted to be part of it. Anything I could do to help, because I think I think teachers are in general under celebrated and under documented, and should be, you know, get a bit of focus now and then, especially when they've inspired, as Moni has, at least a generation, I look at everyone on this screen. I go, they're not my generation. A generation or two of
Or
of
three
performers.
or four.
What?
Or 3 or 4.
Or 3? Oh, now that I see you, yeah, at least 3.
It's funny for me, because I came from a sports background in high school. And when I got to Juilliard, I just didn't feel in any way, shape, or form that I fit in any class except my physicality classes, my dancing with Daryl, or when I got to Moni, it was the only time where I felt like I had the upper hand on everybody else. Because everybody else was like Lee Pace, my roommate, we used to sit in the dorm room and Lee would say, well, I took a year off and went to Europe for a year and then I came here. I'm like, who does that? Like, I go to Europe? I had never left the US, and like everybody had everybody had read all these different plays and been to theater and, I saw Michael Cahn's production at the Shakespeare Theater and blah, 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 all this. And, I was from New Orleans. Like I can name every musician at Preservation Hall. I knew Wynton Marsalis, but theater was still an enigma to me. But the physicality of it, I remember one day we were in class and I was just, bouncing around because I'm 18. And I go to Moni after class and I say, hey, is there anything I could do? What am I missing? And he goes, be still. I'm like, all right. So the next day we come in class and we get in our circle and he's like, up on your toes, down, and blah, 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 all this. And then he's like, all right, everybody, we were working on these movement pieces individually. And everybody had to do their piece in a room together and interact with each other. And I just kept thinking, be still, be still. And it was the first time, like, I felt myself just relax. And I had never experienced that before on a stage or acting, because I always felt like I had to be doing something. I always felt like I had to be generating some sort of energy so the audience would appreciate me and look at me instead of everybody else. And that was the first time where I wasn't paying attention to if he was looking at me. I was paying attention to the person I was interacting with. And that was, I feel like, having done this for 20 years now and work with so many other actors, a lot of actors suck at physicality. Like they never took that class, like how to move like a human. They never took that class. So anything to make an actor take a class, move like a damn human, I am with it 100%.
Same with me. I came from an athletic high school career, more athletic than academic. But in lifetime, you learn how to fall. First of all, if you play football or soccer or any of it, you learn how to fall, learn how to break your fall. So that's really handy at my age because I still retain that crucial knowledge. But yeah, I was very, very easily prone to physicalize. Easily prone to physicalize things. But I was still very inhibited. I mean, I didn't know what to do with my hands when I was acting, when I got to Juilliard. But between Moni and Anna Sokolow, the freedom, I found that the disinhibition, I mean, just putting on a leotard and tights was a major move for me.
Right.
And I said, wait a minute, we never wore those in football. But that was a minor step. But really, just getting the viscera somehow connected to the psyche and the emotional core, wherever the hell that's found. And Moni's class did all that. It was connecting all this, instead of just the physicalization you learn when you're playing a sport. That's a very physical thing, obviously. But I think that was a step up. I think in people who never played athletics of any kind, were against them philosophically, were at a disadvantage.
For me, the leotard and tights were the most comfortable part. And it was once class
I
started.
get to wear leotard and tights. I'm,
Oh, this I get. And then
yeah, right.
and then it became so much more complicated when you weren't allowed to speak, or when you weren't allowed to speak English, where you had to use gibberish and actually listen. And it was actually one of the biggest discoveries I had at school was from something Moni said to me. And and the discovery was that the school is actually many schools. It's not just one kind of acting or another. The different teachers teach you very different things, and sometimes they don't agree. And we did the beginning of our second year. Jessica and I were in Balm in Gilead that John Stick directed in a studio, and it was a very cool, very naturalistic, big cast, Lanford Wilson play. And I played a character who almost said almost nothing, but was on stage a lot, and sitting in a cafe and didn't really say anything, and slurped soup or whatever. And when it was over, we had critiques with all the different teachers, and Moni said to me, I thought you had no inner life. I was like, that's all I have is inner life. I had no outer, and I was like, okay, fair enough. And then I went to John Stick's critique, and I said, John, Moni said I had no inner life. And John was at this point, he was 83 or something, and he was a soft-spoken man, didn't move much, and he thought for a second, and he said, "Don't listen to Moni." And that's when I realized, oh, these people don't necessarily agree with each other or get along, and now I have to be my own. I have to take control now. I have to take what I've learned from these people. But I'll say this. The things that I learned from John don't work in every job I have, but the things that I learned from Moni, I take everywhere. He really is the backbone of the training. Like you still have to take what you learned from him into every different facet. I don't always think about what the orange felt like, or what the soup tasted like. But I always think about my body and where I am in space. And once we had, and the other thing is they're very smart. They don't let you have Moni until they've sort of broken you. You come in a stallion, they break you, and then in the second year you get Moni. And you have to use what he teaches you everywhere you go, even to the places where they don't agree with him.
Moni, for a really long time, you've been the one shaping all of these actors, and something struck me at the end of the film. Kevin says that you're not the one in the spotlight, you're the one preparing others for the spotlight. And I wanted to ask how it feels to have that turned around and to now be the one in the spotlight and be the subject of this documentary.
Well, I feel terrific listening to people saying such good things about me. I really like that, and that's why I'm quiet. I will keep listening.
Don't interrupt. Yes.
Makes me sleep better, feel better. However, what you said, Michael, is very interesting, because you said that you didn't have much to say in the play, and yet you were on the stage for quite a while. And if I told you that you didn't have inner life, it's because when you don't have something to say, the words are not revealing anything. You are not saying anything. And that's where you have to increase what goes on within you. In order for us to, when we look at you by chance, because we don't look at a certain point at the person that speaks, when we look at you, we have to understand what goes on with you. It's not because you don't speak that you don't exist. If you didn't exist, you wouldn't be on the stage. If you are on the stage, we have to know what you are feeling towards the partner. within the situation? What are you thinking about? That's where you have to increase your inner life. I guess I meant that.
We should mention that this broadcast is also a fundraiser for the Black Arts Institute, which is connected to the Stella Adler Acting Studio. And so, Moni, I wanted you to tell us a little bit about your connection to that organization and why you chose that as the one we were going to fundraise for today.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm not connected at all to the organization itself, but I was extremely connected to Stella Adler herself. I left Israel when I was young and went to Paris, and I was studying theater. However, in order to be able to survive, I also joined a theatrical company that was called at the time Théâtre Franco-Allemand. We performed in Germany and toured in France as well. And when we performed in Paris, an American member, an actress who knew Stella, invited Stella to come and see the show. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, Wojciech. Anyway,
George Buchner.
Buchner.
Because I got Borchert in my head because I did a show of Borchert as well. So it was Buchner. And I played the drum major, and Stella came to see it. And she asked Simone, who was the American girl, who is this young man who played the drum major? And she told her that I was an Israeli and I came, etc., etc. And she asked her to tell me if I'd like to meet with her the next day in her hotel, the next morning. So I went and I met her, and that was the beginning of a very, very long and wonderful relationship. She actually brought me to the States to study with her, to teach in her school, at her school, and we remained friends to the last day. We used to spend all the holidays together, and I don't know if Kevin remembers when we did a fundraising for my company. Kevin and Stella Adler actually came in order to help us raise the funds.
I remember.
So my relationship with Stella was truly, truly very close. I adored her, worshipped her. I thought she was just simply amazing. And I think whatever transpired in the theater as far as my changing my point of view from doing mime to the transition into theater, it was all because of Stella Adler.
These last few weeks, we've seen a lot of conversations about accessibility in the theater to training, to even having it in school and all of that sorts of things. And the Black Arts Institute is one organization dedicated to sort of trying to open up that pipeline. But I just wanted to ask all of you to comment on ways you think we can make training and theater more accessible and equitable to everyone.
Well, I mean, I know at school when I was there, I think it's changed quite a bit, but there's, for me, it was an interesting situation because, sometimes, like Michael was saying, it is a bunch of different teachers and a bunch of different people trying to find ways to connect with students. And some of it is really, it's difficult, identity-wise, even just something like learning standard American speech so that whatever you speak is substandard, that there, that there's, as opposed even just the name of it already, you're coming in weird. And, I remember being told, oh, you have such a sandy quality to your voice. Is that from all the flamenco you listened to growing up? And I was like, I'm not from Spain, first of all. But so you get a lot of
flamenco.
I mean, who doesn't like the Gypsy Kings? Come on, man.
And the quality of your
I mean, I guess his image of me growing up was just me constantly singing Bamboleo. I think a lot of that is just, I think a lot of that's hopefully changing, and I think it has changed a lot, but there's just, there was a lot of antiquated ideas of what it means to be neutral, a neutral actor. And so I think ways of talking to people, ways of understanding that they're tools, as our teacher Kate Wilson would say, tools, not rules, which is a helpful thing, because you get in there and you really feel like they're stripping away your identity and who you are and saying, what you are is wrong and you have to be more like this. And I think finding ways of changing that conversation to make it more, to excite students about all the things they can learn, as opposed to kind of tear down who they are first.
I think it's also important for the artist to question things, and for all of us to question things, because we've been trained and we work in and we live in a society where the norm has not been an equal society. And when I was in school, it's definitely changed now at Juilliard, but when I was in school, it was about 2/3 of each class were men and less than 1/3 were women, depending. I remember actually the fourth year when I was a freshman, it was just like 2 or 3 girls in the fourth year class. And I went and talked to Michael Kahn about it, and I asked him, I said, how come you guys accept more men in the school than women? And at the time he had said his answer was, well, there were more parts for men than women in place. And so they had to cast accordingly. And I just said, well, how is it going to change unless you offer the opportunity for women? And why can't women play Hamlet? Why can't we question the way things have been in the past, and just why are we just assuming that's the way it's supposed to be? So I think as artists, we have to continue asking those questions, like, well, why has it been this way? Why is this the norm? In order to move forward in a healthier, more equal, more more happy society.
I think it's interesting because when we were in school, we started like a little, I had a mime troupe, ironically enough, when I was in high school. Shut up. When I was in high school, and come on. And then when I got to college, I got a few of my classmates, and we would go to different schools and places of older assisted living homes, and we would perform these children's stories through mime, and we would have someone read the stories for these people, and they would pay us because that was our work study. But I think as actors and as artists, our job is to affect our audience, and a lot of times we have to go where they are. They won't come to us. I think if you look at Broadway, if you look at the producers, if you look at the theaters, if you look at just the modern, monolith of what theater is, it's such a antiquated idea of wealth, of prosperity, of just insulated ignorance to the rest of the world. And what I think would help immensely is meeting people halfway. The hip hop started in the South Bronx. It had to leave the South Bronx and go to California, leave California and go to Asia, leave Asia and go to Europe to be accepted on the Upper West Side. That's crazy. Juilliard is 60 blocks from where hip hop started, but yet Lin-Manuel introduced the world to hip hop. So what would happen if a 17-year-old, 16-year-old Lin-Manuel was up in the Bronx and there was a Juilliard satellite after school program where that kid had the ability in his neighborhood to be able to create? Then that kid and those other kids in the Bronx would come downtown to theater. They'd come to the Lower East Side. They'd explore, they'd be a part of our vessel of expression, because that's what theater is. It's a vessel of expression. So until we give everyone a equal outlet and ability to express and form their beliefs and get it out there, it's going to be the same thing. 75-year-old people coming in and falling asleep in the front row.
Oh, you're right, though.
All four of my Broadway plays, everybody in the front row asleep.
It's so true. This time that we're in, where everyone is home and unable to go to theaters, and things are happening and theater people who are so resourceful are creating things online, and they're getting out there. It's actually, we're seeing what's possible. We're seeing what an audience could look like because it's everywhere and it's free, and people are actually able to see themselves reflected back at them, as opposed to before, where going to the theater is such an elitist activity, because you have to have money and the means to get there. And now it goes everywhere. It's also like about how the theater can be, what Jessica said about how we're doing these old plays where there's more characters for men than women. The theater can be the world the way we want it to be, or the way that it should be. And until we show that, it won't be. I mean, and just what Jessica did while we were there, in terms of, before Jessica, there was no Los Angeles showcase of Juilliard students. She made that happen, and our class was the very first class that went to Los Angeles and met people, and that was a small thing that she did. But and now they do student projects at Juilliard. We were never invited to do student projects at Juilliard. We were always told what to do and told who we were playing, and there's something so magical to me about like the possibility of the theater, and this moment that we're in has been so eye-opening about who's allowed in.
Whether it's theater or any other form of culture, pop culture, can you all name the first thing you were fans of, where you really felt seen or represented?
I went to see King Lear at Alabama Shakespeare Festival when I was like 13, and it blew. I mean, we were in Montgomery, Alabama, and they did this production of Bernard Shaw's Heartbreak House in conjunction with King Lear, and watching this play, like with the relationship between Edmund and Edgar, the way these actors performed it, it blew my mind that the relationship between sibling and the idea of being a bastard was so, in no way, shape, or form was I represented as hating my sibling or a bastard, but it showed me how deep, how great my relationship was with my siblings, because I couldn't fathom feeling that way. And it was one of the first productions, where I saw a Black dude rocking Shakespeare. And I was like, I want to be, that guy. I want to talk like that. What the hell is he saying? It was the first time it really opened my eyes to what theater could be.
I mean, I can jump in. I'm not an actor. I admire you all very immensely. But the one piece of pop culture was a television show that extremely influenced my life, was A Different World. I still go back to that to this day. It was the first time I saw people who look like me, who kind of vibe like me, who talk like me, who I could see myself like in their shoes. It influenced me about where I wanted to go to college, about the types of things I wanted to learn, about the issues of the day. And those issues are still relevant to this day. So that's why it was also really important for us to capture Moni's teachings for that access, because if you can't see it, you don't even know you can be it, right? So if you don't even know that there's a person who teaches this and can help you elevate your game, it's a lot of YouTube coders. I learned how to change my oil on YouTube. There's a lot of people who try to go outside of the box if they're not able to learn in person, to try to educate themselves. And this film is a way that they can take some of those teachings and incorporate it into their classroom, their virtual classroom that they're creating.
Mine probably came when, I had many influences, but I remember when I was studying at Juilliard, studying with Moni and Mina, and we were learning the neutral mask, which is the white mask that forces you, I guess what Michael was talking about earlier, like the whole idea of inner life. If you have no lines to speak, like what are you creating inside of you? And we were learning that. And on a break, I went across the street to Lincoln Plaza Cinema, and I saw, and I don't relate to this personally, so no one get any weird ideas, but I saw Isabelle Huppert in The Piano Teacher. And it happened at the same time as we were studying the neutral mask. And it was the first time I realized, especially in film work, how important the inner life is, and how, for me, she acted with a neutral mask, where you felt everything she was experiencing. She wasn't, offering anything easy to you. It was almost like she had the invisible mask on, but it made her inner life so full. And it was something that was, I guess, this incredible piece of cinema as I was studying with Moni and Mina, that combined together for me. And it really, in me, defined what kind of artist I wanted to be, being able to connect those two.
That's a perfect description of Isabel. I never thought of that, but that neutral mask, that sort of deadpan, if you want to call it that, that is so expressive, but she does very little with her face, but she's not dead. There's nothing not going on inside.
No, I love her.
I think the first time that I saw I realized that obviously, like, the kind of person I am is well, I was watching Kevin Kline movies. I was watching a guy be seriously silly and take such great care with comedy. Watching an actor that I knew to be very smart be a complete fool in a movie like Soap Dish, where he plays a pompous actor who's doing dinner theater salesman, and I can still remember bits with a newspaper and glasses, and that seems so easy, but that somebody took, that seems so easy and stupid, but somebody took great pains to do. And then he played the president, and then he did In and Out, and I saw a gay man. And I knew he went to Juilliard, and I thought that's what, and he played Hamlet, and he did all these things that I wanted to do, and it was a kind of a direct line for me to say that's it. I want to go there. So whatever. I'm nervous to say that, but I said it.
That's extraordinary.
That's
That's amazing.
Well, it's amazing you survived those experiences and turned them into something positive for yourself.
How do you win an Oscar for a comedy?
I know. But apropos of acting foolish, I should have said when I talked about knowing how to fall down, it's not minding falling down, which is you get used to playing athletics, and you become inured to it. And all the best directors and acting teachers said, don't be afraid. The most influential said, make a fool of yourself in rehearsal. That's what rehearsals are for.
Right.
Allow yourself to be foolish. Allow yourself to, and directors will always start a rehearsal process saying that there's no right or wrong here. There's no judgment here. Sort of a Spanish Inquisitional style judgment, every move. But you disregard that and you say, okay, I'm going to out foolish everyone. I'm going to be as foolish and silly as I want. And it was that freedom that I learned through this visceral and physical work with Moni and Anna Sokolow, but more they were more just experiences I had with certain directors who said, just around, be silly, just be silly. And they go, you're an idiot, just be an idiot. I thought, when they got to know me. I remember John Cleese, when we were shooting a book called Wanda, saying how what he does to relax on a set is because we spend so much effort trying to convince people that we're intelligent. He says, I just do one of the Gumby. I just kind of talk like this. And it's very relaxing for me. And obviously the Pythons were all, Oxford, Cambridge, highly educated and not stupid. but they could be as silly as they felt like. And anyway, I learned it actually. It was one director one day when we were doing a tech rehearsal, and I just started goofing off and just started being silly. And he said, if you did more of that, if you brought that same energy into your serious acting, you're going to open up a whole new kind of thing.
I came to New York for the first time. I think it was late 80s. My dad took me and I saw Once on This Island.
Oh, wow.
And for me, it was the moment when the Prince came on and he had just two flashlights and that was the limousine. And he was like coming in like this. And I just thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And it was so magical because it really looked like a limousine to me. He just had two flashlights and it was on a huge Broadway stage and it was the simplest little thing. And I think also, I'm a kid from Miami and it was this Caribbean kind of thing happening. And I just, I think that really, I don't know, it opened up the magic of what it all can be.
So for all of you, you've all worked on projects that have huge scale, whether it's network television, Marvel films, Star Wars films, Stephen King adaptations, live action Disney movies. I imagine there's a lot going on those sets beyond just your performance and your inner life. So I wanted to know how something like Moni's teachings and grounding yourself in your body and that physical work might have influenced those performances or really given you something useful on projects like that where there is so much other huge stuff going on around you.
Those movies, they kind of just put me in there just to show scale of how big the machine that the spaceships they've built are. They're just like, go stand next to it so they can see how much money we spend.
The Marvel movies were the first time I had to do like a action thing, and my character is the Falcon. So I show up, and I sit with the graphics team and the directors, and they're like, we want you to land like a bird, like because you have wings, so you can't land like that. You have to pull your legs in, swoop your core in, let your wings slow you down, and then land on your feet. So, being the weird actor that I am and going back to my mime and clown days, I went and just started studying all these birds and the way they land, the way they took off, the way they flew and all this stuff. So the first day, I think we were doing Civil War. And there's the scene where, Iron Man shoots Rhodey out of the sky and I land to see if he's okay. And I'm supposed to land. So they pull me up like 30 feet off the ground. And I'm on a pendulum. So I'm supposed to pull my legs under me and land to a stop. So I didn't realize how much my lower body weighed. So I pull on the ropes to try and bring my legs under, but I can't get my core in. And I literally land face first in the dirt and bounce for about 10 feet. Grass and mud all in my face. And the crew is just dying laughing. Everybody's dying laughing. And I was like, all right, I know what I got to do now. Okay. So then they pulled me up high. It became a comedy of errors of every day when I had to land and how they were going to kill me. To this day. How do we crash them into something? But the physicality of that directly stems from the work, the physical work, the clown work, the mime work, the body inhabitants that we learned in Moni's class.
There was something that you learned in that class, this idea of I never allowed myself to take a break or to give up. I mean, you're doing very difficult physical things in Moni's class. And you are like, we're doing things where we're squatting down and in a circle holding the palms of the people next to us. And it's so much about trusting your partner. If you fall down, then everyone's going to fall down. So the sense of pushing myself beyond what I thought was possible. And that is something I really carry with me. And I've been told over and over and over again on film sets, shooting in the middle of the night, doing physically difficult things. Many people have said things to me of like, oh, you're so, I don't want to sound like I'm patting myself on the back, but I learned it from Moni. No, just that I was, not really giving up or not getting tired or, not showing up late. All of these things that you kind of just assume an actor would be. But all of that I really credit to Moni and his class. The sense of no matter what what situation I'm in on set, it's never going to be more difficult than taking that class in 306. I will never be at the point. I mean, I remember one time after class, I couldn't walk. I got up to leave and my legs gave out from under me because I pushed myself so much that I was able to walk. Took me a moment just to gather myself. But so that I take with me. And I also take with me the idea that it's so much about the other person there with you. There's a great exercise where the group is together and one person will change the movement or the beat and you follow along and you're really listening as a whole. And it's about how acting isn't about you as a soloist. You're part of an ensemble. And that in every single project I take with me. I'm always there to listen to see how someone is going to change the rhythm. And so for me, you can't just say it's one thing, because really for me, it's everything that Moni taught me.
Well, this is my version of a Marvel Star Wars with a rickety two-story set off Broadway, where I had to do this very long drunk sequence in a crowded stage, but on the second level. And it was like a 20-minute extended drunk sequence where I just kept getting drunker and drunker. And we had to figure out like, okay, now you go over there and I'll go over there and I'll fall here and I'll roll over there. And then we saw the set and I was like, I'm going to fall off. I'm stumbling around drunk. I'm going to fall off this set. And they were like, no, I don't think you will. Just be careful. And I was like, well, maybe I should fall off. And so then we figured out how and they said, no, you can't. We don't have insurance or whatever. And I was like, no, I can do this. I can figure this out. And so it became this like, it was like what Jessica's saying. It's like, I'm not going to give up on this. I'm not going to, we're doing this scary scene on a rickety set off Broadway that is going to be great. But if we don't go all the way, if we're not fearless, then we will miss something, and we won't leave it all on the stage. And I think that was that. And so we figured it out, and I fell off the damn stage 8 times a week, and it was great, and it killed, and it
killed. I saw it as one of the best things I've ever seen. It was amazing.
But it was not easy, and it took a ton of strength to figure out how to literally fall off of the second story of the set in an easy, silly, drunken way, and with a whole bunch of actors supporting me and to make it look safe and easy.
What play was that, Michael?
That was the play called The Government Inspector, a new translation of an old Nikolai Gogol play.
I mean, I think just what you guys are saying is exactly right. It's the I mean, I think of Moni's face often when I'm working, and the focus and that this kind of thing that emanates from inside. I go back to those classrooms when we're all just standing still, we're up on our tippy toes, and he's just breathing and expanding, and someone as small as Moni starts to look just bigger and larger than life. And kind of connecting back to that feeling that you have that within you, that you can tap into that thing because we've seen him do that thing. And that, I think about that often, a lot, just that kind of integrity when it comes to things. And then also the curiosity that one little thing can just ignite Moni's imagination. That's especially from working together. The eyes, the observations that you see, and then that just ignites your passion. And for me, that's been incredibly important, especially on those bigger movies, because it's so easy to lose your curiosity in those situations, and to take those things for granted, and to feel like there is not room for that. And so that's something that I always try to kind of tap into again, is that incredible curiosity that he still to this day has, and I hope to emulate that in some way.
Isn't the what transfers that, or how that's communicated to us, is a spiritual thing. I mean, what makes a gifted teacher gifted is the I mean, there are things you can say. Well, there's curiosity and intellectual curiosity, and I don't know what else there is, but physical curiosity, sexual curiosity. It's that they have this gift of inspiring, and I don't know if it's any more of a conscious effort than acting is for us, who we as actors spend a lot of time thinking about ourselves, and it's part of the game. It's hard not to, because, I remember coming from music school to go to Juilliard as an actor, and people say, what's your instrument? And me, we are our instruments, so we try to polish them and keep them operating, functioning at optimum level as much as possible. Those of us who respect our teachers and who have some apprehension of what it is we've learned and what they did to us, what they instilled or communicated to us, which stuck either on a conscious or unconscious level. I think that there's something, I don't know, I feel like I feel privileged to be in that company. And I'm proud of myself for still acknowledging the teachers who helped form me, or who helped teach me how to form myself. Anyway, thanks, Moni.
Well, I think we can all say thanks to Moni, and thank you to all of you for being here today to talk about your experiences in Moni's classes and your role in this documentary. Again, it's creating a character, the Moni Yakim legacy. And if you get the chance, please donate to the Black Arts Institute. The link will be in our story. And thank you all again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Moni.